Welcome to the theEWpodcast. In today's episode, I speak with Ryan Landis. Ryan is a community outreach specialist for the Big Brothers Big Sisters program in San Diego. In this episode, we discuss the program and share details from our own experiences as Bigs. Ryan shares information on how the program helps both Bigs and Littles. We discuss some of the current needs of the program and provide insight into what it's like to be involved. This episode was also recorded near the start of the coronavirus lockdown in the U.S., so we touch on how that is affecting matches. Also, due to the lockdown, this conversation was recorded on Zoom, so the audio quality is not quite where I want it to be, but we'll just roll with it. So on a personal note, I have currently been involved with the Big Brothers Big Sisters program for a year and a half and going strong. I get into the experience a bit in the episode, but I thought I would open with some quick words on what it's been like. So getting to see my little grow and develop more confidence has for me been the best part of being involved in the program. Anyone who has kids, younger siblings, or works with kids already knows how fast kids can grow. I've seen in my little take noticeable strides in just the short time we've been together, and it's very gratifying to think that I maybe had one tiny part in that. Of course, some outings are harder than others. Some days it's harder to find conversation than others. But when I look at the bigger picture of our time together, it makes me super proud of how far we've come, both of us. I would never take direct credit for some of the positive changes he's made. There are many factors coming together to benefit him after all. I'm not directly responsible for him losing weight, committing to more exercise, or becoming more confident. But if you could boil the past year and a half down to some algorithm where his experience has been quantified with all the variables accounted for, I would be fairly confident that I helped increase that final value. The program has also helped me grow as well. Outside of this program, I would otherwise have no interaction with children, so being required to change how I think when we're together and revisiting my thoughts on my own childhood have both been very refreshing. The whole experience has made me more patient for sure, and it's also given me a better understanding of some of the challenges kids face in the world today. For all parties involved, I can confidently say that the past year and a half has been a net benefit. Coronavirus has changed all of our lives at the moment. Big Brothers Big Sisters is feeling it too. Obviously, in-person matches and outings are currently on hold. However, I've been informed that they are still accepting applications. Here's a note from Edith Cruz, the Community Outreach Senior Manager of Big Brothers Big Sisters San Diego. Despite these uncertain times, we continue our dedication to the mission of Big Brothers Big Sisters of San Diego County. We continue to serve and support the 750 plus big and little matches we currently have in our programs. Additionally, we are continuing our efforts in enrolling volunteer mentors and have gone virtual with our volunteer information sessions, as well as the volunteer interview. In general, it can take several weeks and sometimes up to a couple of months to go through the enrollment process, and we would like to have as many volunteers ready to go once we are able to introduce matches. She then goes on to talk a little bit about a virtual information session that is coming up in April. I will share more information on this in the show notes as well as on Instagram, but here's some more words from Edith on that. Our next recruitment event has gone virtual. This event will show a presentation where others can learn more about our agency, the role of a mentor, and the enrollment process. We'll also have a couple of current bigs share their personal experience and be available for questions. So plenty of good information here about the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. If you're interested, I hope that this episode and the information session will encourage you to make the commitment. Here's my conversation with Ryan Landis, Community Outreach Specialist for Big Brothers Big Sisters San Diego. Cool. So how you hanging in there right now?
Not too bad. It's this is the end of our second full week of remote, so there's pros and cons,
Yeah.
But I think it's fine overall. We're still able to do our daily task, which is important, So I'm still reaching out to inquiries and things like that and trying to get people involved. So that's nice.
And your current role is a community outreach specialist, right?
Yeah, community outreach specialist.
So what does that entail? What's your day-to-day?
So for community outreach, I'm part of the recruitment team. So what's really nice about that is that's where our big need is, obviously, is finding bigs. So for Big Brothers Big Sisters, you think there's bigs and there's littles, but the kind of interesting thing is we don't advertise or market for littles at all. They just kind of find us naturally, and we still have over 650 kids on our wait list, which is just San Diego, which is a big number. But sometimes people hear that and they think, wow, that's a lot of people, like a lot of kids waiting. I kind of look at it in a positive way, though, because it shows that we're really making a difference, because if we're not even advertising and we're still getting kids and families signing up, I think that's a positive thing, because they've seen it maybe work with a family member or a schoolmate or a friend, or just word of mouth. And so they're able to find us. So we don't have to find the kids, they find us, which is really nice. It saves us some time there. So our big focus is that recruitment. So as a community outreach specialist, that's one of my main tasks, is to find volunteers. We do it in a lot of different ways. I sometimes will focus more on male volunteers. We have a community relations specialist that works with families, so they help enrollments of the kids, as well as female inquiries. So it's kind of split between the two of us. But so I can find volunteers if they find us naturally online. I'm the first one to call them, email them, talk to them about the process and things like that. And then from there, we kind of try to get them into the information session, which I believe you might have gone through, right?
Yes.
2 months ago. Yeah. So that info session, we get them into those. I conduct those. I run those as well. So those are kind of the two main things, kind of reaching out to those inquiries and conducting those information sessions, just so they know kind of what to expect and how to move forward.
And you've been through the program as well. You were a big yourself, correct?
Yeah. So I was a big, I know I'm going to age myself, but around like 2008, 2010, I believe I did it for 2 years, and it was amazing. I think I always wanted to volunteer in some way or another. I know that I like working with kids and things like that. So this seemed like a natural fit. My mom was a teacher growing up, so I saw that mentorship that she had with kids, looking up to her, and I just wanted to kind of do something and give back. And so I signed up when I was in college. I was working 2 jobs, full-time student as well, but I still wanted to do it because I had that passion. And so I went through that same process, an info session to learn more, the interview, the references, the background check. It can be a lot, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but it's worth it. And once I was matched, it was a really awesome 2 years.
And you were matched with one child, correct? And you...
Yeah. I was matched with one. So, through the process, they do the matching. They look at all the different criteria on both sides, the big and the little, and preferences and things like that. And I was matched with one child. He was just him and his mom, so he was lacking that consistent adult male role model in his life. So that's a big reason. Over half of our kids come from single parent households. So that was my situation. So to just be able to go in there as an adult, consistent role model for him, I think meant a lot to him, his mom, and I really enjoyed it too, because of it just felt rewarding. And we were just hanging out. It wasn't like it was a lot of pressure to like, I'm going to save this kid, or I'm going to tutor him and he has to pass this test or therapy or anything like that. It's just being there and hanging out with them, which is, I think, really nice. So not to put too much pressure on yourself if you are volunteering.
Mm-hmm. Do you still have a relationship with him?
In and out. His mom is on LinkedIn still. So this is, over a decade ago, really. Right. And so I know he's in his early 20s now, and he was coaching a minor league hockey team in Phoenix where I was matched with him. His mom reaches out to me in LinkedIn and lets me know how he is doing too, and stuff like that. So yeah, it was definitely a positive experience, and hopefully he got out of it a lot out of it. I feel like he did, though. We definitely became friends. It was really great.
You talked about the process that bigs have to go through when signing up. What are some of the main things that the program looks for in bigs that they ultimately give the go-ahead to?
Yeah, the process to being matched can be, there's multiple steps involved, not to like scare anyone away, but we want to do our due diligence to make sure all these volunteers are ready to go when they are matched with the child. So whether it's the natural inquiry that they make online or calling us or emailing us, or maybe we meet them at a tabling event. The first step is that info session. So that's kind of where we help teach them more about the program, what's expected of them, and the requirements. Simple things like, 18 years or older, live in San Diego County, and be able to commit for a 1-year commitment. That's a big one for the bigs. We have that 1-year commitment kind of set in place because we want to make sure those kids can count on them for at least a year. And if what's nice about that is that most the average match length is actually over 2 years, which is incredible. We say we want 12 months, but it ends up going over 24, 25 months, which is kind of showing how it's an effective and positive program for all the parties involved. But yeah, so after the VIS, we kind of go through the process. So it looks not too bad, really. They fill out the application and all that entails. We do the quick background check, multiple things that we do there. And then we do the interview. That's another important one because we're going to find out all about them. I'm sure you can remember yours. Mm-hmm. We're going to ask you, why do you want to volunteer? What kind of little are you looking for? And then we'll kind of dive deep into your family and work history and things like that, because the more we learn about you, the better match we're going to make. And then once the interview's done, the references are checked, and then once you're approved to be a big, we start looking. So we're going to, say, all right, well, based on the interview, we have the criteria that we're looking for. Let's try to find a little for this big. I
think it took me maybe 3 or 4 months to go through the whole process. Is that a typical time frame, or am I misremembering that?
Yeah, actually, if I had to kind of guess, that seems pretty typical. It's just it varies so much from person to person. You can have, let's say, for example, I know San Diego has a need for Spanish-speaking bigs in maybe the South Bay, like Chula Vista. So even for male. So if you're a male Spanish speaker and you live in the South Bay, it can take like 2 or 3 weeks. But then there's certain areas that don't have as many. So let's say an example could be like more coastal areas where there's not as many littles waiting, both for male and female. If you're not a Spanish speaker, it can take more than 3 or 4 months. It could take 6 months, 9 months to find you someone. If that was the case, we would ask you, like, are you willing to wait longer or maybe willing to drive further? Because we want to get you matched. We want all the volunteers we can wherever you live. It's just certain types or certain places and scenarios might make it shorter or longer.
You mentioned that that there's no need to do any advertising to find littles, which is a pretty cool and interesting thing in itself. But is there any sort of criteria that a family or a little must meet to be a part of the program? Or is it whoever seeks out the program is likely to get accepted?
Oh, that's a great question. It's awesome that you brought that up, because just like the bigs go through a pretty, detailed process, we kind of go through a very similar thing with the littles and their families. So once they make their original inquiry, we're going to send them the application and tell them kind of what the process looks like and things like that. And hopefully they'll want to move forward from there. And once all that stuff's turned in, we'll, just like we interview the big, we interview the family, including the parent or guardian and the kid themselves separately to see. So one of the most important questions we ask every little face-to-face is, do you want to be in this program? And if they say no, then that's it. We don't move forward. And so they say yes, or when they say yes, we're able to keep going. So that's when we learn more about them. And so we're going to ask them about their family history. We're going to learn it from their mom, dad, or whoever their guardian is. And kind of after that, we have all their information. Our enrollment team that kind of work with matching, they make that ultimate decision and say, you know what, we think that this kid could benefit from a mentor and could see a positive thing come from it. Or they might sometimes say, you know what, this kid's, has a lot going for him in this situation or this or that. Maybe there's something else that they could be a part of, and then we don't take them on. But yeah, just same process, interview, and then we kind of make that decision based on what we find out.
Are there some main factors you can point out as being more critical than others in making that decision? Like, is it looking at their grades or their home life? Is there anything that's weighted more than the other, or is it kind of a case-by-case situation?
It's definitely case by case, but there's absolutely trends out there that we're seeing. You saw me mention or heard me mention the single parent households. That's a big one, right? Because that's one less adult mentor in your life. So that's something that we take into consideration, and that's like 57% of all of our littles. Okay. And then there really are a lot of other things. So some examples of where these kids are coming from and what helps them become a little, and we kind of accept them, is things like having an active duty military parent. Growing up in military brat myself, there was a lot of things. We moved around a lot. My dad was deployed for 6 months at a time, things like that. So an extra mentor would be great there. Incarcerated parents. So those are three popular examples. And then we've seen a lot of other things as far as criteria for the kids. So bullying in school, maybe they're on the autistic spectrum, ADHD, and then even more deep things like experienced abuse in the past or different things like that we find out. And, we have all these kids that we interview with all these criteria. So I think we kind of look at them and say, well, like kid A might have all these things and kid B only has these things. So we might prioritize kid A based on that. So yeah, we look at everything as much as we can.
One of the things I remember going through whenever I was first signing up and kind of dealing with the unknown of who's my little going to be and, what's this going to feel like? You mentioned accepting children who are on the autistic spectrum, and that was kind of something in my mind was, am I going to have to deal with a child who has some sort of disability? Am I getting myself in over my head? And I think those might be some common concerns that people have when thinking about the program. How do you guys take that kind of stuff into account when making a match?
We definitely take that into account 100%. And, we definitely go out of our way to make this process, from the first step all the way to the last step of being matched. We try to make it easy on the volunteers. So something like that is very important to us. You heard me mention the interview earlier, talking about what kind of why you want to volunteer, what kind of little you're looking for, and that's a perfect place to kind of talk about all the things that you might be comfortable or not comfortable with. And in fact, during the interview, our enrollment team will just straight up ask you, they'll give you a list and say, do you feel comfortable working with kids that come from A, B, C, D, E, F, all these different situations? You could answer yes, no problem. You can say yes, maybe with a little training or some more talk about that, or I'm just not comfortable with that. We don't want a volunteer taking on more than they can handle. Because like you said, if that's a fear of yours, it's going to be a fear of other people. And this volunteership should be a fun experience for them. So we don't want them to take on a kid that they might not be trained for or have the time or energy to handle. So that's where we find that out at the interview to kind of learn more about their preferences. And then before we even match you, once you are ready to be matched and we find someone that we think you'll be a good pair for, we'll talk to you first and just let you know all about them and say, hey, we found this kid. He's great because of X, Y, and Z. What do you think? And then you give us the go ahead, and then we're able to say it with the kids. They give us the go ahead, and we're able to make that match. So definitely not going to surprise you with some kid that might be real troubling or live 45 minutes away or something like that. You'll always be in the know when we make that match to hopefully give it the best chance of success.
Is it a situation where bigs are in the program longer and kind of develop their skills and then want to move on to maybe more difficult or more, I don't want to say difficult, but challenging relationships?
We have a lot of mentors that have volunteered now for, anywhere from 5 to 8 to 10, 15 years. We've been in San Diego for over 50 years. And so we've seen mentors or bigs with more than one little, and there have been instances where they say, you know what, this kid was great and I love my experience with him or with her, and now I want to move forward and maybe we can switch it up. Maybe I want to try a new age, or I feel comfortable working with a kid from this population now, so they can take on those, if you want to say, more challenges, or just mentoring a kid again in general, I think is the best part.
What are some examples of things that the program suggests bigs and littles do in their time together?
Oh, well, first and foremost, we're in San Diego, so there's tons to do here, right? Shout out to San Diego. I love this city for sure. A lot of people don't have too much trouble finding things. Depends on where you live and what your personalities, likes and dislikes are. Basic things like going to the park and stuff like that are easy. So as far as the boundaries go, we have that 2 to 4 times a month for at least 1 year that you're hanging out with a kid for at least 2 hours each time. So, the first 6 months, there's no going to the big or little's house to hang out. Obviously, we're not going to go out of the city of San Diego and things like that. And then we also want to focus on the one-to-one relationships too, just as far as requirements go. And then as far as things to do, we have a lot of different references and referrals that we can do, activities that we have planned and things like that kind of give you an idea of what an expecting outing kind of looks like, I think.
What were some of the most memorable outings you had with your little in Arizona?
We actually went to the park a lot. He lived by this huge park in Phoenix, and we would go to the park and just like kick ball around and play in the equipment, and that was just tons of fun. But one of our favorite things was we would do different activities that Big Brothers Big Sisters actually held for us. They would have these big match outing opportunities and invite all the matches in that area to do. So I remember one time I went to another park for this huge picnic where all the other matches were there, and it was great because our match support specialist was there. We got to kind of hang out with, and then I had a friend that was in the program too, and he was there separately with his little, and so we got like meet up, and it was really cool to see like, oh, this is my friend, and he's volunteering too, and really awesome to see that. And here in San Diego, we do the same thing. We have events throughout the year. We'll always invite you to, we have tickets to baseball games, partnerships with like the boxing club where we'll have clinics, all kinds of just different fun things like that as well. So definitely, I think those are some of my favorite because you can see all the bigs and all of those kind of come together, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah, me and my little have been to the ice skating.
Big night on ice.
And, the big night on ice twice. So, yeah, he really looks forward to that. That's a really cool opportunity to just see what all the other bigs in the county are doing and how their relationships are.
Yeah, and to know you're not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Big really Night on Ice is tons of fun. Yeah, ice skating every December where we invite all the matches out. Free event, tons of giveaways and contests and things like that. And like you said, just to see all these other bigs and littles together, it's really heartwarming too, to kind of know that you're not alone and there's a lot of people doing the same thing that you're doing.
So the program recommends or requires a minimum 1 year commitment from the bigs. What are some goals of the during that time, during that year? What are some things that the big can try to work towards with their little,
I think that all the every match is going to look a little different. And as far as goals go, it could be something, as simple as just kind of getting the kid to come out of their shell a little bit or talk a little bit more. And some kids are just ready to go and they're just going to have a great time and things like that. So I think one of the big things that we like to focus on is definitely going to be that consistency and building that trust and relationship within that first 6 months to a year. It can take a while for the kid to warm up and kind of get used to what's going on, up to 6 months or more in some situations. So that first year, we definitely focus on, all right, twice a month minimum, 4 times if you have the time for at least 2 hours each time. If you can't make an outing, communicate with your little, because if you can't, you don't want to hurt their feelings or make them think that they're not wanted. So yeah, once they kind of see that in the first 6 months, hey, this guy that's mentoring me or girl that's mentoring me wants to be a part of my life and hang out. I think that really shows them that they can build that trust and depend on that mentor. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a big thing that we look for in the first year for sure.
This is a challenging time right now for maintaining those relationships. How do you recommend, this is a little off topic. We don't have to go too far into the weeds with this, but what are some recommendations right now, just even for myself in maintaining my relationship with my little,
Since, the COVID-19 coronavirus kind of changing a lot of things in our lives right now, nothing that we've really seen, not even our parents really, not that we've been through. And it's 100% affecting our matches because many of them, aren't able to meet up, or it's not even recommended for them to meet up. So what's really great is that we've seen our team at Big Brothers Big Sisters come together like never before. And every day, I swear, there's like 5-6 new emails with a list of different things and references and things that bigs can do and littles can do, and just ways of kind of coping with this kind of craziness that we're going through right now. We have links for online things that we can do. We actually had our Operation Bigs program that's at schools up in Camp Pendleton. They had a virtual one where they invited all the bigs, all the littles online, and our match coordinator had different activities planned. So they're, all on the screen and sharing from home and things like that. And they got to say, share one thing from their home and guess what's someone's favorite food is and things like that. I'm sure you've seen it a lot of the just coming together online. If you haven't already, it looks like, using Zoom and Skype and FaceTime and all these tools that we have are important and really helpful. So we are encouraging our matches to still call, text, Skype, FaceTime, whatever you can do during these times and get creative with it, of course. If you need advice or tools and resources, our bigs can go to their match support specialists who are always there to support them. And they're going to share those resources that we get that we're sharing internally. And I think we're working on a site that's going to share all these lists. So it can be like different videos to watch and online webinars and different things like that to kind of cope with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you guys seem to be doing a really good job. I got a message from Sam today with a bunch of resources and things to do. Yeah.
Invite your little onto Zoom or something. You guys can, chat about whatever's going on, and it'd actually be a lot of fun, I think.
So aside from situations like this, what are some other challenges that bigs face in their relationships?
I think a big thing, sometimes the expectations the bigs put on themselves can kind of be tricky. Some think that I'm going to mentor this kid and they're going to open up and then just do so many positive things. But we forget that they're just kids. We serve all the way down from age 7 to 17. And so if they're a younger kid, they're not always going to express those things. And it can kind of make the bigs feel down or sad, like they're not doing anything because the kid's not explicitly saying, thank you for being my mentor. You've changed my life. Even though they don't always see that, you're making a difference no matter what in the kid's life. You might see it later down the road. You might not see it until the match has been closed for a while. But that's a big challenge I think that they have. And then you mentioned obviously what we're going through right now could be another one as well. I'm sure there's other things, but anytime you do have a challenge, you have your match support specialist to reach out to. They're always there to kind of help guide you for whatever you might run into.
Did you go through that kind of feeling of, I'm going to do so good at this program. I'm going to make my kid the best kid ever. I'm going to be such a great influence. Did you have that experience whenever you first signed up as a big?
I was excited for sure. Yeah, I was excited.
I can definitely relate to that. Yeah.
8 years old. Yeah, no, I think it's a very common one that you see a lot of because, you feel good. You're like, I'm volunteering. This is great. I'm going to help change this kid's life. And then, you go to the park and you chat and it's fine. And then afterwards you're like, well, did he enjoy that? Or is he getting anything out of this? And that's where that consistency, you build that relationship more and more. And by the time it was later, 2 years in our match, and, he was invited me to his band performances at school and different things like that. Or he just called to say hi and things like that, which is really cool. And then it's like, oh, wait. He actually does want to know, he wants to communicate with me. We have this relationship. And so I saw that change from beginning to end. And I thought that really helped a lot in my case.
Yeah, I definitely came in kind of with that mindset of guns blazing, about to turn this whole thing upside down, be so awesome at it. And then you start to realize that, yes, you are helping, but it's in such incremental ways, such subtle ways that for my little, especially in the last 6 months or so, he's really made some positive changes in his life. He's, doing more exercise with his family. He seems to be getting more confidence. And I would never just claim that or want to attribute that to myself, but it's still cool to be here, a part of that, watching it happen, even though, it's a bunch of different things coming together to create that for him and to help him.
And just think of it really simply. It's, if you are a kid and you have an extra adult mentor looking out for you, is that just not going to help you in one way or another? Whether you see it or not, your little has you to look up to and knows that you're there for them if anything happens or if they need something, and you'll be there, as long as you can be. And that's where it makes that difference. And, a lot of our littles go on to do awesome things. We have a lot of littles become bigs, or a lot of littles go into nonprofit and things like that because they want to help others just like they were helped. A lot of the times I'm talking to new inquiries, I'll say, how'd you hear about us? And they'll say, I had a big growing up, or I had just had a mentor in general growing up, and it meant a lot to me at the time. And now I want to give back. And I think that's a really great thing. And so you as a big, me as a former big, all of the bigs make a huge difference for sure in their lives. Whether, we can't take all the credit for it, but just know that positive force is going a long ways.
And it's cool to just see it happen, to see how far he's come from day one of our relationship to now. It's been awesome, even if I've had just the smallest, tiniest little sliver of impact on it.
Yeah, seeing that growth in the match is awesome. We like to keep track of that as much as we can. We do surveys and things. We talk to the kids and the bigs and the parent and guardian to kind of catch up and see how things are going and kind of take a snapshot. And I know we have some matches that have been together for a long time. There's one I'm thinking of, they've been matched for 4 years, and there's a before and after picture we have at the office. And he's, the little is just a little guy. And then 4 years later in high school, he's like almost as tall as his big. And they've been matched this whole time. And I think that seeing those things like physically and they've grown closer is just a really awesome, inspiring thing.
Is there any evidence or numbers you can share with us that prove the efficacy of the program?
Yes. Yeah. So not to brag about Big Brothers, Big Sisters, but I definitely like to. We've been around for over 100 years. We're in all 50 states, 12 countries. So I think that means we're doing something right. We're making that positive impact. So in all this time that we've had matches and been pairing up kids with mentors, we've done tons of research to see how it is affecting the kids and how it's affecting everyone, really. So youth outcome surveys, interviews with the kids and families and things like that during the whole thing are really important. So yeah, some statistics I'm happy to share, just some general things for littles that have bigs. Those littles are going to get along better with their friends and family for sure, be less likely to skip school, be less likely to start underage drinking as well. As far as some hard statistics go, 84% of littles that we interview agree that their big taught them the importance of helping others. I think that's a huge number, 84%, and these are the examples that I mentioned earlier. They were helped as a little, and now they want to get back when they're big and or when they become a big or do something else in maybe the nonprofit sector and things like that. Amazing. And then a really great one of my favorite ones to share. So we serve kids ages all the way to 17. So that's seniors in high school, right? So last year we had 37 seniors that were paired with a big. So it might seem a little wide, 16, 17 years old, and you still have a big brother, big sister mentor, but there's 37 here in San Diego, and all 37 graduated high school.
Yeah, that's awesome.
100%, right. And going back to what you said, the bigs might not take all the credit for that, but there's absolutely got to be some kind of correlation, right? That 100% of them graduated. So some always beneficial. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't, but I definitely think that no matter what, you're making that positive impact.
Do you have any idea what the normal rate of graduation is in San Diego? I'm not expecting you to have that, but
it's less. I think it was talked about. If I had to guess, it was might be in the low 80%.
Okay.
I could be a little off, but it's definitely less, obviously, than 100%. So knowing that compared to or with or without a mentor or a big brother, big sister, it's a positive change upwards. Yeah.
Has there been any studies or anything looking at the effect on the bigs at all?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We interview the bigs just like we interview the littles and their families and everything like that. And I'm sure now you might be able to relate, and I could relate. After the studies and surveys that we've done with the big brothers and big sisters that have volunteered, they've reported a lot of positive changes too. So some examples could be a feeling of stress management just in general. So, we're working full-time jobs, we're paying mortgages and bills and gas and car insurance and just so many things. We're working on tight deadlines at work and things like that. Maybe we're going to school. And so we have a lot going on as adults, right? Adulting is hard is what they say. So to be able to escape for a couple hours, a couple times a month, really helps those mentors too. So, community engagement and purpose is another one, and overall better health is a lot of things, what they reported. So as far as numbers go, 76% of volunteers report feeling physically healthier. That's awesome. And 78% of volunteers report lower stress levels. So, I had a bad week, busy week, this happened at work or whatever was going on. And then I just got to go to the park. We went to the movies and just hung out and had a laugh, and it was a lot of fun. So stress management makes you feel good about helping those in need.
Yeah.
And for the 2 years I volunteered, I know that being able to step up and be a positive male role model in my little's life definitely made me feel good about what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the outings can just be straight fun. We went to, Boomers, right? Yeah. For
Boomers. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And rode some go-karts recently, and I was just having a blast, just cruising around the go-kart thing.
That's how it should be. Yeah. People think it's going to be stressful or oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How's it going to react? But you get into a groove, you find something that you both like and have in common or want to try together. And absolutely it should be fun. And most of the times it's just going to be a blast,
Yeah.
Different activities. There's a lot going on. So definitely cool things like Boomers is a great example for sure. Of course, everyone's going to enjoy that, right? It's such a great place.
So one of the things that I looked at whenever prepping for this convo was the impact report from 2018. And in it shows that 38% of the bigs were female compared to 62%, 38% was male compared to 62% being female. But the number of male littles and female littles is closer to equal, and the number of male littles far as outnumbers the number of male bigs. How does that affect the program?
That's something that I think it's probably countrywide that we see that trend is real, is that there's more little brothers waiting for a big brother than there are. And that goes hand in hand. We see more little brothers come in through the process, and we're still kind of looking at kind of why that is or what's going on with that situation. But at the same time, we're also seeing more big sisters come into play to want to volunteer. And we can't really pinpoint exactly why that's going on. All we know is that it's a real thing that we need to focus on. So last we checked, it was about 70% of ours in San Diego, our waiting littles were boys. So that means that we should be looking for 70% of our volunteers should be males, should be big brothers. So, we have to focus on certain things that we can to try to bring more adult men to be mentors. So we'd have events at breweries and sporting things and tabling events like that to try to attract the men to want to volunteer and talk to our big brothers that were willing to share their experience and things like that to try to find their friends or coworkers that were also male that wanted to do that. And, I've been at Big Brothers Big Sisters for 2 years now, and we focused on that, and we were trying to find men, right, in certain areas. That was our big thing, and worked pretty well. And now we're kind of seeing that trend almost even out. If I had to guess, it could be closer to like 60% instead of 70% now. So goes to show that we still want male, female, whatever it is. But yeah, the trend that we were seeing was that we need more men volunteers more than we needed female volunteers. But no matter what, we just need the volunteers. I mean, 650 kids on the wait list, right? So definitely, no matter what.
Is it a priority of the program to match a male little with a male big?
We do the male same-sex matching right now. We do have different gender matching for our Operation Bigs program, where we can match a big sister with a little brother. And one of our big sisters that was matched with a little brother in our Operation Bigs program got Big of the Year for that program, that Operation Bigs program. It was such an awesome time. The kid, I think, was 8 years old or so, and they just hit it off and had a great time too. So we're always exploring different things that we can do and offer. And as soon as we're able to do that, we like to bring it out for sure.
So are there any specific areas that Big Brother San Diego and Southern California need help? You mentioned the trend between males and females seems to be evening out a bit. I'm guessing, as you mentioned before, Spanish speakers is high demand right now?
Yeah, so as far as San Diego County, I'm sure San Diego County is really widespread, all the way from Camp Pendleton, Alpine, down to Otay, and then the coastal areas. So San Diego County is huge, and so there are certain areas we look at. We have all these applications. We have this huge map of the county in our office where we have stickers, so we see the concentration of different areas of where the big need is. And I briefly touched on it, like a place like a Pacific Beach or coastal area like Encinitas might not have as many littles waiting. We're not sure exactly why, maybe more affluent neighborhoods or some situation. But then we'll see places like East County, Mid-City, and South Bay with just tons of littles waiting. So that's a big need. We're always looking for volunteers in Chula Vista, El Cajon, and then up north, more coastal like Escondido and San Marcos as well. You mentioned Spanish speaking, a big Spanish culture in San Diego. So if you're a Spanish speaker, that's definitely a benefit. There's a big need for Spanish speakers. Interestingly enough, it's not most of the time it's not for the kid, mostly for the parents. Maybe just the parents are Spanish speaking only, but the kids are able to speak English too. So a lot of times they'll put on the application, we'll say Spanish speaking, they'll say a little bit, and we'll just assess their Spanish. If they feel comfortable doing that, we'd love to match them with the Spanish speaking parent or guardian. Yeah. So our definitely needs are going to be males in certain areas, females now, of course, and then Spanish speakers, and then South Bay and East County, I would say, are two of the most important ones right now.
And I'm just assuming that the number of littles on the waiting list far exceeds the number of bigs.
Yeah. So, I feel like the waiting bigs, I wish I had a number to give you, like how many bigs are ready to be matched, because there's so many kids on the list. If you are in an area, say you're in Chula Vista, and you go through the process and are ready to be matched, you're likely not going to wait long, because, we'll probably have some kids picked out for you, and we'll choose one and then make that match. They're still out there because we want to make that perfect match, so it's definitely a lot lower, I would say. No, I can't even guess a number, actually.
Okay.
But it's lower than the 650, of course, because that big number of the kids, I think, is overwhelming.
Yeah. And you just mentioned something that I want to touch on again, is that it's more important to you guys to make a good match than to just make a match for the sake of making a match, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's huge. I'm glad you brought it back up, because the way we make that match, and you could maybe even speak to this when I'm done, of kind of what you remember your experience being, but it comes back to that interview. We interview the big, we interview the little and their family and their guardian, and kind of ask them, what are you looking for? And then once both are through the process, it's good news. It's not just saying, all right, well, Eric's ready to be matched, choose the next kid on the list, here you go, have a good time, kind of thing, right? We're looking at a lot of criteria. We have an amazing team for our enrollment team. These ladies have been doing this for a long time and are very well trained. They're awesome. And they look at it. They look at all the criteria. They do the interviews, and they start looking, all right, well, if we do have Eric that's ready to be matched, and he said he's looking for maybe a little this age, maybe he's willing to drive 15, 20 minutes one way, and he likes this or that, then they're going to look at that criteria. And same thing for the littles, and they're going to try to find those perfect matches. And they're going to do that. And they're going to call the big and say, hey, we found someone, it's a little further away. It's about 22-minute one-way drive. He's a year older than you look for. We can't be 100% accurate, but we think you guys would be a great pair for these reasons. Mm-hmm. Once you give us a go-ahead, we call the little and their family, tell them about you. They give us a go-ahead, and that's it. We make that match. We do the match introduction, which is an amazing time. And we'll kind of set you off, plan your first outing and things like that. So a lot goes into it. You'll always be in the know, and we'll always match you with someone with similar interests and things like that. So I hope that would help potential bigs feel more comfortable about the process. Does that sound kind of familiar? Do you remember how that matching was for you?
Yeah, no, that sounds definitely familiar. I actually turned down the first match that was brought to me because I live downtown San Diego and they live downtown San Diego. And I enjoy hanging out with my friends, going out to the bar, and I didn't want there to be a potential of seeing my little hanging out on the corner while I'm hanging out with my friends or something. So it was important to me to have to drive to my little. So that was actually the first little that was brought to my attention was one that I had to turn down and then waited for another few weeks to get another.
Yeah, and we honor that, and it makes sense. It's for good reasons on your end too, and I'm glad that you were still able to be matched for sure. But it definitely goes to show that we always take the volunteers' input into account, and we want to make sure we make that strong match so that they can have that best chance of lasting and being a positive impact on all the parties involved.
What happens if a match does not go well? If two people get matched and the big or the little just is not into it after a couple matches, is that something you honor, or do you encourage them to try some new activities and work it out?
Match closures are definitely a thing that happen. Thankfully, they're very rare, and they could happen for many different reasons. It's kind of after they're through with my steps, so I don't see the full details on what's happening. But I do know when a match closure happens, we'll be very open and talk to you and all parties involved the whole time. So if the match just isn't kind of taken off after the first few match outings, like you said, every match has a match support specialist to kind of help guide them and see, like, all right, well, this is why the situation's happening or why it's not going well. Have we tried this? Have we tried that? And we kind of gauge it. We really talk to them, one-on-one, just with the big or just with the little or just with the parent or guardian. We say, is this match not working because of a reason that we can fix, or is it really not fixable? Did we just kind of make the wrong match this time? And if so, we'll honor that. Like you said, we can close the match prematurely. Not something we want to do and not something that we do a lot. But obviously, if it needs to be done, we'll do that. And then if possible, just get back to looking and try to rematch both the big and the little.
Another thing I want to touch on as we wrap up here, kind of nearing the end of our hour already.
Yeah, that was really quick. On the clock. I'm like, whoa.
I know. You mentioned the match support specialist. So this is a person that is assigned to every match, and it's a resource for all bigs. Can you elaborate on the role of the specialist?
Yeah, you mentioned Sam, right? So that Sam would be your match support specialist. He's awesome, funny guy for sure. He's really cool, and every single match has a match support specialist, and it's a full team. I think there's anywhere from 15 to 20 full-time match support specialists on our roster right now at Big Brothers Big Sisters, and so they have their caseloads and they have their bigs and littles and their parents or guardians, and their main goal is just to kind of keep track and keep focus on those matches and make sure they're going well. Minimum requirements for the bigs and littles, for the first year or so is to check in on them, check in with your match support specialist once a month and just kind of let us know how things are going. Hey, we did this for a match outing. This is going well. I might need some help with that. And once that check-in's done, though, that's not all. They're there for any extra resources you might need. So common things could be, I don't know what to do with my little this weekend, or, my little said something to me that I didn't know how to react to. And so they've been trained. They know what to kind of offer for guidance, or maybe their little's parents not answering emails or calls or something like that. They're going to offer all that advice because, again, we don't want this to be uncomfortable. We don't want this to be work for you. So if you have any trouble, go to your match support specialist. They will give you all the attention and advice that you need until you feel comfortable with whatever situation you're going through. So awesome team of match support specialists we have right now too.
Yeah, Sam's been super helpful. It's nice to have that person there that you can kind of turn to and you never feel alone, but at the same time, it's not an overbearing presence that's, demanding things from you and requiring you to do certain things for the program. It's kind of just a safety net.
Yeah, it's based on kind of after the once a month, which is really honestly very easy to do, the once a month check-in. Everything else is kind of to your own discretion. So maybe you do want to reach out more, and that's totally fine. Maybe you want to get involved in different ways. They're going to be able to help you with different ideas and things like that for sure. So use them as much as you need to. That's why they're there.
So to end this, are there any cool success stories? We've kind of touched on a few already, so no worries if this doesn't have a good answer, but any cool success stories you'd want to share?
We have one big that's been matched. I think he's been matched 3 or 4 times, and his current his last little, because he aged out, I think he's in his early 20s now, they just hang out now. They formed that friendship, which is really cool. And now our big is able to help us. He wants to. He saw the positive effect, and he helps us by donating money for us for quarterly recruitment events. So, he just wanted to volunteer as a big, like 10, 15 years ago. And now over a decade later, he's still involved. He still talks to his former littles. He's giving back and he's helping us fund these events, which I think is really cool as well. A very similar story to that is we have these videos that I show in the info sessions. And in one of the videos, it's at Phil's barbecue tailgating party that we have every summer. And it's a match, and they're talking about they've been matched for 6 or 7 years, and how much they like it. And I really enjoy that story. And I watched the video tons of times, right? Because I'm doing these over and over for the info sessions. And so I'm at Phil's last summer, and I'm just kind of, I think, selling water, and I hear these voices, and I'm like, whoa, these voices sound familiar. And I look up, and it's them. It's like, to me, it's like I'm meeting celebrities. Yeah. Like, I know you guys. And they're like, what? Who are you? I'm like, I do recruitment, and like I show you a video like 3, 4, 5 times a month, and it's amazing. And what's even cooler is that they actually, just like the last story, they aged out, and they just came to Phil's not as a match, but as friends. So they were matched 7, 8 years. He turned 18, aged out of the program, but it was such a strong relationship and bond that they had made. They stayed, friends and came to that event, and they're still hanging out too. And you see those stories a lot, which is really inspiring.
I don't think we've gone in depth on aging out. Do you want to just touch on that and elaborate what that means?
Right now, we serve kids ages 7 to 17. You know, when they're getting to turn 18, we'll start to kind of let them know that our program ends at that age. And, you know, I think there's talk about trying to focus on maybe new programs where we can offer the mentorships beyond that, maybe to 18, 19, maybe 21, 22. To keep it going. And so definitely still in the early process of that, but if we can offer it, that'd be great. But right now, yeah, we say we serve kids ages 7 to 17. And then for mentor, you just have to be 18 years or older. Interesting fact about that, our oldest big right now, you want to take a guess?
Oldest
big, current right now.
Whew, I don't know. I want to go pretty high, like 78.
No, close, 85 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 85. I think he's on his second little and having a great time in our Operation Bigs program. So definitely awesome. Don't ever let age be a deterrent if you're worried about that.